With the simplest of events, there's always at least two sides to any story. But with big historic events, with hundreds of thousands of people involved, it's very important to take your time and look at the details. You've heard that President Trump and myself wanted to storm the Capitol and kill people because that would give us power, that would make us look like good guys. Does anybody believe that on its face? Well, that's what everyone's being told in every major publication on the planet. But the Wall Street Journal was forced to retract, and now others are, when they claim that I led the assault on the Capitol. You're about to see the truth of what really happened, and it is criminal, but it wasn't done by myself or President Trump. President Trump called for peaceful rallies in D.C. on January 6, 2021, so that Congress, who was holding hearings and debate on the fraud, would see that the American people were upset and were not going to accept the fraudulent results. I learned that there wasn't enough funding and that private groups were not donating enough, so I donated some and helped organize the peaceful events that happened on January 5th and the day of January 6th. Then President Trump said that he wanted me to go out and lead the peaceful crowd that was already there to the Capitol so that we could continue to peacefully demonstrate. So here's the timeline as best as we can nail it down. Right as President Trump starts to speak, tens of thousands of people had already shown up at the Capitol miles away from where he was giving his address. The police in some areas opened up barricades, in other areas kept them closed, and clashes between some of the demonstrators began. That's when the provocateurs who had already been there starting fights with the police accelerated their violence. There are literally hundreds of videos like the one you're watching right now where Trump patriots physically restrain individuals trying to break out windows and ram down doors. This is how you take a massive, almost million-person march exposing election fraud and discredit it, because only a few hundred people actually attacked the police. And most of them, we now know, were led by provocateurs commanded by Antifa. One such individual is John Sullivan. He's an Antifa leader from the West Coast. He's been arrested for staging riots before. This individual said online he was coming to D.C. to overthrow Trump. Well, he certainly did a good job at it. Instead of saying he's openly against Trump, he helped lead the assault on the Capitol and even chanted over and over again that others needed to join him in burning down the building.
We gotta burn them. We gotta get this shit burned.
But guess what? After his arrest that night, he was then released and has not been charged. John Sullivan is a smart member of Antifa, very Machiavelli. If he just went out and knocked out some Starbucks windows and set a fire in a random neighborhood, like his type normally do, well, that would actually demonize the left. But if he can lead a riot into the Capitol when the Capitol police are outmanned and stand down, well, then he can help bring down the whole country.
My name's John Sullivan. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. My group is Insurgents USA. We fucking about to burn this shit down. Fuck this shit.
We gotta burn them. We gotta get this shit burned.
The Washington Post, NBC, and others even reported in the days before the riot that Antifa and other organizations were recruiting on 8chan boards to go to D.C. and stage an uprising. Once the small agitator groups led by Antifa had forced their way in, some of the hundreds of thousands waiting outside decided to go in and behaved like traditional tourists, taking selfies with police and, of course, paintings and statues of founding fathers. And now you see the mainstream corporate media and big tech deplatforming the president off of 9 major systems and shutting down Parler because they thought he might move there. Pure authoritarianism. And hundreds of publications and groups calling for my arrest, saying what happened in the Capitol is my fault for organizing peaceful demonstrations and rallies across D.C. and the United States. I'm going to end this with some footage of what I actually did before the march started, and once I got to the Capitol, how I tried to stop what was then unfolding. It was only later I learned that that poor woman, Mrs. Babbitt, had died while I was outside warning people that we didn't want another Kent State to happen.
Like Don Jr. said, we're not burning buildings down or shooting cops. We're building America up. We're here to take our rightful country back peacefully. We're not Antifa. We're not BLM. You're side, and let's not fight the police and give the system what they want. We are peaceful. We won this election, and as much as I love seeing the Trump flags flying over this, we need to not have the confrontation with the police. They're going to make that the story. I'm going to march to the other side where we have a stage where we can speak and occupy peacefully. Tell everybody behind you, march to the other side. March to the other side. Provocateurs have caused a problem, and the police are throwing flashbangs. We don't want to have a Kent State here. So, I love you. We're saving the Republic. This is beautiful. But please tell everyone you know, march to the other side. I agree. Do not be part of this. Tell everybody to come out of this side. Provocateurs are setting us up.
Here's what we know. Close to 1 million people showed up in D.C. to exercise their sacred First Amendment right, and they did it peacefully. A couple hundred provocateurs were able to take over the Capitol because the police stood down and then tried to provocateur Q followers and others to attack the police, so there were 4 deaths. And now we're being told the entire Bill of Rights, the entire Constitution has to be completely thrown out because of the limited violence that was basically a riot at the Capitol that was mainly provocateured by leftist agitators who said they were going there to provocateur this and dress up as Trump supporters to, again, do exactly what is now unfolded. But they don't have the real power. They just staged the event. It's mainstream media that allows the lies to continue, and it's big tech that suppresses us from getting this truth out. But I want to close with this important graph. We'll put it on screen. Your outrage is being manufactured. Let's look at the BLM riots and left-wing violence from Antifa and others in the last 7 months compared to what just happened at the Capitol. It lasted 7 months. It was condemned mostly by Republicans and celebrated by the left, encouraged by media and politicians. Police force was used massively. 23 plus people were shot dead by Antifa and BLM. 700 officers injured, many killed. 150 plus federal buildings damaged. Hundreds of small businesses destroyed. Entire neighborhoods burned down. Now let's compare that with so-called right-wing violence in the Capitol that was triggered and provocateured by the left. Lasted several hours. Condemned by all Republicans and Democrats. Encouraged only by fringe political groups. Police force used. 1 person shot dead, 2 others had heart attacks, another died of a stroke. 14 officers injured, 1 federal building damaged, no small businesses destroyed. But we see unbelievable nationwide outrage and are told that all conservatives are evil terrorists, and many Republican leaders agree. Wow, that really is insane. Imagine if Mr. Sullivan would have been successful trying to get others to burn down the building. Imagine if those pipe bombs that were found, left by the left outside, had actually detonated. I've talked to high-level law enforcement sources and folks high-level in the Pentagon, and they have confirmed to me that this was a globalist attempted false flag that misfired. It only got about 1% of the violence they actually wanted because they just couldn't trick a giant crowd of Trump supporters into regular mob psychology you see after a football game or a basketball championship where you could see dozens of deaths, hundreds of fires, you name it. Because Trump supporters were so law-abiding, this thing basically failed, and I thank God for that. Now it's up to us to get the truth of what really happened out to the world.